I've really enjoyed our lead series that we've been in throughout the month of November across all of our campuses. One of my favorite parts has been having conversations with leaders right here in our church. And today I get the great privilege to sit down with my good friends, Kim. Kim, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. Kim, you have been in the healthcare industry for 38 years as a nurse, working in some incredible hospitals. Lately, you've taken a pretty important step, pretty massive step in your career. And now you oversee all the nurse leaders across the entire network of hospitals for Shriners all around the world. It's a pretty incredible role. And I know that through that and through your leadership, just as a wife and a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 2, like, you know a lot about leadership. I know that you do. I want to ask you some questions today. Is that okay?
Yes, sounds good.
So throughout this series, we've been looking at the life and leadership of Jesus. When you think about, as a follower of Jesus and as someone who looks to Jesus for direction and guidance, right? When you think about the leadership of Jesus, what comes to mind?
I think Jesus is just the ultimate servant leader, and he just loved people right where they were at, and loved them so much to not leave them there, and just saw their potential in them and helped them grow and develop into that potential. He used everyone, and everyone had value. And as I look at the teams that I lead, I want to ensure that I recognize the value that every team member brings. And that's why we don't call them staff members, we call them team members, because they are part of our team. So that's one thing that I love about the example Jesus has set for us.
Are there any habits that you have just as part of your day that help you kind of focus on leading like Jesus?
Yes, I think one habit that I have is I want to spend time with the team. And so while it is important to have that time to get some of your work done at your own desk, it's equally as important, or more important, to get out there and be with the team and just spending time with them, connecting with them, hearing from them, and hearing their ideas, having some of that shared decision-making, shared visioning together. And that's something that's really important to me and something that I really try to do every day.
So when you look back, if you go back to when you would have finished school early on, or whenever you had your first job in healthcare, I'm sure your leadership looked differently then than it does now.
Yes.
If you could go back and you could just have a conversation with Kim back then, whenever it was, is there anything that you would tell her or encourage her with?
Yes, I would say as a leader, you don't have to know it all. You don't have to have all the answers. I think I love that saying where it goes, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so it's just really loving on your team and engaging with them, and again, just supporting them, caring for them, serving them. So I think that's one thing. And then I think another thing is that when people are under your care, that it's important that they know how much you care. And so it's not about a position or a hierarchy, but rather just caring for those team members that are under your care.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Yeah. Kim, you're an amazing leader. We're so grateful to have you here at our church. You're an amazing leader worth following. I'm so glad to know you. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you can honor her. That's great. Love it. So grateful for the leaders that we have that are a part of this church and that serve. So thanks for joining us in this journey. You know, in 2014, there was a guy by the name of Damien Lowe who was kidnapped by gunpoint outside of his home in London. And the kidnappers took him back to this undisclosed location. They went and they decided that they were going to put together a ransom and send it to his family. And so they made the phone call to his family and saying, hey, we have Damien with us. And they asked for some absurd amount of money. And the family started to push back, saying there's no way that we can get that kind of money, and there's no way we can help pay that ransom. There's got to be another way. And all of a sudden there's a click. They hang up. And like out of a movie, the kidnappers decided that they're going to do what they'd seen in the movies, and they thought they would send a message on how serious they were. And so they cut off one of his fingers, and they sent it to the family as a message to let them know how serious they were about it. And now the good thing is they were nice kidnappers. They actually let Damien choose which finger they were going to cut off, which obviously got me thinking, which finger would you choose? Like, let's just take some moment here, and think about this. You have seconds to decide which finger you're going to let go of for the rest of your life. Which finger are you going to choose? Right? Think about it for a second. Which one? Go through it. Now, You're sitting there going, all right, this is kind of a weird way to start a church service, but now, hang on a second, because this actually happened a year earlier to a man in Syria. Same exact deal, kidnapped at gunpoint. The kidnappers asked that man to choose which finger they were going to cut off. A year later, happens to a guy in London. I'm just saying, it could happen to you, right? And because I'm a loving pastor, I want you to be prepared. You imagine the pressure of just that moment of going, I don't know which one I'm going to choose. Like, this is a big deal, right? So take a minute, please. Take a minute and think, which finger would you cut off if you were forced to choose, right? Go ahead. Take a second. Now, here's what I want you. I would like for you to share that with the person next to you, right? Because you never know if you're going to be kidnapped by two people or if they're going to be standing there around. So go ahead, share it with the person. Which finger would you choose to cut off if you had to choose to lose your finger? Go ahead. Yeah. Now, here's the thing. If you're a hand surgeon, right, you know there is a medically and scientifically right answer to that question, right? If you're a hand surgeon or you're in the medical profession, you know there is a right answer to choosing which finger you can do without, all right? All right, and so here it is. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give it to you at the end of this message today. So stick with me, and I'm going to help you as we get there. We're going to come back to it in just a second. Last week, we started a series about leadership, and we started talking about the heart of a leader. And the reason is because Proverbs 4 tells us from the abundance of our heart, right, everything flows out of it. Guard your heart because everything you do comes from the motivation of your heart. And so we talked about the posture of a leader, that we all need to understand that whatever role you're in, because all of us are leaders, because all of us have influence. And if leadership at its simplest is just understanding influence, then every single one of us in this room are leaders. And so we talked about, when we talk about leadership and modeling our lives after the model of Jesus, then we have to understand that that starts with a posture of the heart that says, hey, I'm here to serve. No matter who I'm at and whatever influence I have, I am a servant as a leader. And so we talked about the heart of a leader. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk about the hands of a leader, right? Because once you get the right heart and the right posture of leadership, then you have to actually put your hands to doing the right things, to lead the way that Jesus led. And so to begin today, here's what I want to do. I want to talk to you about what I think is, honestly, it's one of the biggest myths in leadership today. If you're taking notes, you can kind of write this down. The greatest leadership myth is simply this. Let me kind of pull it up here. Individuals accomplish great things. That is one of the biggest myths in leadership today, that individuals accomplish great things. But here's the thing, whenever we think of success, right, when we think of someone who's great at parenting or coaching or business or marriage or even churches that are succeeding, we often think that it's because of the talent or the skill set or the strengths of the individual, that that's what made them successful. But that's not true. In fact, the truth is this: nothing of significance has ever been achieved by an individual acting alone. Right, now, you might be able to think that there are individually great performances, right? There are people who are extremely gifted and skilled at certain things, and they seem to excel more than the people around them. But as you search throughout all of human history, you will discover it wasn't that single individual that led to a significant change. Right? The truth is that nothing of significance, let that sink in, nothing of significance has ever been achieved by an individual acting alone. Right? If you see a parent whose kids are thriving, right, or you see an athlete who's excelling, or a businessman or a church that's thriving, it wasn't because they had it all figured out. It wasn't because they were the smartest people in the room. It wasn't because they were the world's greatest mom or the world's greatest dad and no one's ever been able to keep up with them. It wasn't because they were white-knuckling every season on their own. Like they just thought, you know, I can do this. I can figure this out. I can get us through whatever season it is. It wasn't because they were the smartest. It wasn't because they were the most talented. And because of that, they pushed away everyone else and did it alone. The reason they were doing well, The reason they were accomplishing things, the reason they were able to build some things, honestly, the reason why some of the investment that they made as parents allowed the foundation for their kids to be adults that thrived was because there was a lot of other people. Maybe it was a team around them, maybe it was employees, maybe it was a friend, maybe it was a coach, maybe it was a grandparent that kind of came along. There were a lot of other people along the way that contributed to their growth and to the success of their life. All right, because below the surface, what often seems like solo acts of greatness are always team efforts. I love what Kim said today in the video. It is that reminder that she's not doing this alone. And that's why I think one of the biggest myths in leadership, and not just in leadership, but when we think of ourselves as leaders, is that we often think that it's individuals who accomplish great things. It's the most gifted. It was the smartest people. It was the hardest working people. It was the wealthy people. It was the ones who didn't have to go through as much as I did kind of people. It was all those types of groups that we think those are really the ones who end up accomplishing great things. But the truth is that teams, people accomplish great things. And when you look at the greatest leadership model the world has ever known, which is Jesus, and last week we talked about why we believe that Jesus is the greatest leader of all time. If leadership is influence, there hasn't been another human that's ever walked the face of this earth that has had more influence than Jesus. And so it's easy for us to kind of say Jesus, by the sheer amount of influence, was probably the greatest leader that's ever walked the face of the earth. And when you look at the greatest leadership model the world has ever known, you see where we get this leadership truth from. Right? Jesus modeled it, and the greatest leaders and some of the greatest organizations in the world are often the ones who actually followed the model of Jesus. Now, again, fast forward a few thousand years, and we have leadership sectors, and we have business gurus, and we have all these people who come and do coaching for people, and life coaching for businesses, and yet they're talking about the models that were given to them by the model of Jesus. Like, we didn't figure this out like 1,000 years later and say, hey, you know what's really great is if we built a lot of people around us to help us succeed. It came from the model of Jesus. Again, Jesus is the most influential leader of all time, right? It's the reason why, this is just the truths of who God is. It's the reason why so many of the songs we sing today, no matter where they're from, come rooted out of some of the truths found in the book of Psalms, right? God's truth has been here way before someone else wrote a book and sold it. And so Jesus models this, and oftentimes the greatest leaders, the greatest organizations, the greatest individuals that have exceeded and succeeded in life are ones who followed the model of Jesus. And here's what you notice. Jesus was always choosing to work as a team. Now here's the crazy part, right? If ever there was a leader who could have done it on his own, I would have to think it's probably Jesus, right? If ever there was someone who had the skill set and the resume to go, you know what, honestly, I got this. I don't need any help. I'm actually pretty good. Like I can turn that water you're drinking into wine, right? I know there's a pretty big sea between you and I, but you know what, I can just walk on top of it. Like I've got a pretty significant skill set, right? It's my resume. I'm a pretty good guy. If you stick around long enough, you'll see that I will even raise myself from the dead. Like Jesus could have done it all if he chose to, and yet Jesus chose to surround himself with others. Right? So here's kind of the big idea I want you to kind of leave with today, right? Because this is true of any one of us in this room. Whatever our season is, whatever our level of influence might be, whatever our perceived level of leadership might be, this is true. And here's the big idea. It's that you can't accomplish anything of significance without people around you. If you want your life to matter, if you want what you're doing in this season to actually matter, if you want your marriage to be significant, if you want your kids to have a foundation to be raised in that's significant, if you want your country to be significant, if you want your business to be significant, if you want to leave a legacy as a father or as a mother or as a grandparent, this is the truth that you have to understand. There is nothing of significance that any of us can do with any lasting effect without people around us. right? And this isn't just a leadership quote, right? I mean, this is actually scripture. In Luke chapter 6, if you have a Bible, I'd love for you to turn with me to the book of Luke chapter 6. In Luke chapter 6, Jesus is starting his public ministry, right? And so not a lot of people know about Jesus. He's starting to kind of build a little bit of a group. He'd grown up around the temples. People recognize that even as a boy, this guy, he knows some things. He's got a different connection. And as he got a little bit older, people started to kind of follow him. He built this understanding as in the church world, he's a pretty good guy. He's a rabbi. There's some people that wanted to be taught by him. He had some followers that he was starting to accumulate, but nobody fully understood who Jesus was at this moment in time. And Jesus is about to kind of start his public ministry and start to reveal to the world why he came, that his goal was to come into this world and to transform the entire world and lead their hearts back to God, right? And so let me just show you one of the first things that Jesus does as a leader. Right, in Luke chapter 6, verse 12, here's what it says. It says, one day soon afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray, and he prayed to God all night. Now think about that. Has there ever been anything in your life that consumed you so much that you prayed about it all night long? Right now, I've had some moments in my life that were pretty significant, that were heavy, that felt like, man, I can't do this on my own. And I was crying out to God, and I'm interceding, and I'm talking to God, and I'm pouring my heart out to God. And maybe in the hardest moments, there's been like 30 minutes that passed. Like there's just never been a moment where there's been something so strong that I'm sitting there up all night and I'm praying all night long. It's just never really happened for me. Now that might be different for you. Maybe you have experienced something that was so big to you, that captivated your heart so much that you literally spent all night long talking to God about it. I think for a lot of us, though, that's probably not really the case. But there is something that Jesus says, God, I got to talk to you about this. Now, here's what's really interesting. This is the only place in all of the Bible where it says that Jesus prayed and talked with God all night long. Right? So you got to wonder, what was so important? What was so important that this was literally the only place in all the scriptures that Jesus prayed? The next verse tells us. It says, one day soon afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain to pray. And he prayed to God all night, right? That's the verse we just read. When morning came, he called his disciples to him, and he chose 12 of them, whom he also designated as apostles. You know what kept Jesus up all night? Was he had to choose a team. He had to pick some people to surround himself with, and he wanted to make sure he got it right. He wanted to do these things in the right way, and he wanted to lean in the right way. Jesus probably by this time had hundreds of people who knew he was a rabbi, knew the teachings of God, but yet he chose 12. Right now, of all the people who could have accomplished anything he wanted to accomplish on his own, he models something really important in the very first leadership choice that he had to make. He was modeling something for you and I and for every follower of Jesus that was come, is that you aren't designed to have to accomplish things on your own. In fact, you can't really accomplish anything of significance without the right people around you. And so here's what I want us to learn today. Right? We'll do it this way. Three leadership lessons from Jesus on teamwork. If you're taking notes, the first one is this. Lesson number 1. Very few things are as important as the people you surround yourself with. When I grew up, there was a pretty well-known youth pastor kind of around in the Illinois area, and she led a really amazing youth ministry, and it was one of the largest in the country, and she kind of was one of the first people that I had ever heard that shared this phrase, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I mean, we've heard that in probably a lot of different variations, but growing up as a high schooler, that was probably the very first time I'd ever actually heard someone put it in that kind of way. Show me your friends, and I will show you your future. You know what she was doing, and she was helping students realize, is that very few things are as important as the people that you surround yourself with. Right now, every one of us are leaders because every one of us have influence. That means if you're a single mom, or you're a single dad, or you're a stay-at-home mom, or you're a stay-at-home dad, if you're a teacher, If you're a CEO, if you're a nanny, if you're a grandparent, if you work the deli counter at Subway, guess what? You have influence. And if you have influence, that means that you are a leader. And the people that you surround yourself with matter more than you may know. Now, here's what I love. Every parent will try to teach their kids how important that is. My guess is if you have raised kids and they're anywhere beyond junior high age and into high school age, you as a parent have had to try to navigate those waters, right? Whether it comes to someone that they wanted to date or whether it came with a group of friends, and right? And let's just talk. I mean, I know it's church and we don't like to be too transparent, but let's just be honest. Like, don't all of our kids have that one friend that we're like, yeah, he will be in jail soon. Like, and so my goal is just to distance them at some point, right? Right? Or have you ever had your daughter bring someone home and you're like, no, not chance, right? And you can't come out right away and say it, right? And so you just walk around with a gun all the time. But you're kind of trying to think of ways to already put some distance in there, right? Because you know this as a parent, don't you? That the people your kids surround themselves with are influential. As a youth pastor for a lot of years, I would try to help parents understand this truth in such a powerful way. And so I would over-exaggerate something so that they understood it. And here's what I would tell them. I would tell them all the time, listen, your kids' friends are more powerful than God. Now that sounds like a terrible statement. And in reality, we know that God is all powerful. And so don't write me an email. You understand what I'm saying? And I would explain it to them and say, hey, listen, your kid could come to church on a Wednesday night, have the most life-changing experience, and really connect with God in a very special way. And the very next day, by first period, they could be participating in a group of people saying jokes that they know that everyone would be ashamed of, and they feel this amazing amount of pressure. Did that mean that God didn't move in their heart? Of course not. But boy, it shows you the power of the people you surround yourself with. Now, here's the thing. You know that as a parent, and yet you ignore it as an adult. The older you get, you kind of go, well, I'm good. I got my people. I'm good. I don't really need a lot of people around me. I don't need community. I don't need to surround myself. I kind of know what I want and how I'm doing it, and this is how I like. And so the older you get, the less people you have surrounding you. You're kind of tightening up the ranks and you're closing the circles a little bit, but the people that you surround yourself matter more than you know. And here's what I would say. If you want your life to matter, if you want to make a difference with your life, if you want to make a difference in your school, or you want to be the kind of leader that influences your business or your culture, your neighborhood, your workplace, man, the people around you matter. Why? Well, because no matter how gifted and how dynamic and how smart you think you are, and not even in a condescending way, you may be extremely gifted. You may be extremely smart. You may be extremely competent and dynamic. It is still a myth that you have everything that you will need to lead and make a difference on your own. I'll give you an example in my context. Many of you know, unless it's kind of your first time here, but I lead the day-to-day operations of Heritage Church. I oversee all of our campuses. I oversee all of our staff. That is my role as the senior pastor of Heritage Church. And here's the thing. I believe that God has wired me in that way. I believe that God has gifted me and maybe even blessed me in some really specific ways that help me lead our church. But here's the thing. When I sit in a room that is filled with our elders, if you're kind of new to the church, it's a similar thought of a board of directors, right? They're people that we have chosen to give leadership and guidance to our church to kind of help make sure we stay within the bounds of what the Bible has called us to do as a church. It is an incredible gift to have a leadership covering over me. There isn't a single thing that I do without the blessing and the approval of our leader board, our elder board, right? And when I sit in a room with our elders, and I sit in a room with our staff or our campus pastors, and all of a sudden I start interacting and I start to see their gifts, and I start to see their wisdom. I start to see their insights, the way that they're moved to compassion about things. Man, I quickly realize that I don't have what it takes to lead Heritage Church on my own. Right? Now, some of you may be thinking, then what are you doing here? Like, what would you say you do here, Pastor Schuyler, right? No, I mean, if I had to lead everything on my own, right? If I thought I was the kind of leader that could lead everything on my own. More importantly, if you think I should be the kind of pastor that should lead everything on my own. Let me tell you what that would mean. I wrote some of this down so I don't mess it up, but I would have to be vision caster, theologian, manager, communicator, team builder, accountant, recruiter, writer, creative, a counselor, a musician, a mediator. I need to be a financial expert, have to understand how construction works. I need to be an audio engineer, a graphic designer, a visual artist, the kids champion, students champion, young adults champion, marriage champion, groups leaders, special needs specialists, adults ministry leader. I'd have to be the funeral director and the wedding coordinator. I need to be a social media guru. I'd have to understand and fully know how to run human resources. I need to be a legal expert, a web developer, facility mastermind, administrator, chief of security, right? That's just scratching the surface of some of the roles and the things that takes place. And you know what I have to do in addition to all of that? I'd still have to be an amazing husband. I still have to be a great dad and a good friend and still somehow manage my full-time male model career. Like this place would fall apart in a week if I thought I was the only leader that needed to be recognized. Right? And here's the thing I need you to understand. There is freedom in the model of Jesus, and it's this. You and I don't have what it takes to be great at everything. That means there are no perfect parents, right? And so if you're sitting there as a spouse and you say, you know what? I'm just telling you, my wife, she's got it all covered. She does it on her own, man. She is the best mom I've ever met. Guess what? She doesn't have what it takes to be the greatest ever. She needs your help. If you're sitting there going, man, listen, I'm telling you, my boss, he can cover it. I got it. I'm way more talented. I'm gifted more than anybody else. And honestly, if I don't do it, it doesn't go as well. Or you know what happens when I don't do it? Like it feels like the lower the quality changes or it's not going to have a good response. So I'm needed. Right? You and I don't have what it takes to be great at everything. Right? The truth is that person doesn't exist. Right? I wonder if this is why the model of Jesus that he gives us is so important. If the very first leadership decision that Jesus ever made, that he agonized over, that he modeled for us, the leader who could do everything on his own, the leader who would have been great at everything, the very first thing out of the gate he modeled is, nope, I need people around me. I need people around me, and so do you. So, here's what I want us to understand. The truth is, you and I, we can't do it all. But God has created others around you that have different wirings, have stronger gifts, have new perspectives, have different voices of encouragement and challenge that can be used by God so that together you get to make a difference. See, here's the thing I want us to walk out with and understand. Your dreams, the things you want to accomplish in your life or in the circles of influence that you're in right now in this season, God's dreams for you aren't going to be accomplished without the right people around you. So here's what you have to invite them in. Jesus had lots of people wanting to follow, but he had to go and choose. He had to go ask some people, hey, I want you to come in. I want you to surround me. Right? Lesson number 2. Here it is. When choosing your people, right, we all know this is it. Jesus says, hey, you need people around you. When choosing those people, here's my encouragement to you. Prioritize heart over talent every time. I know some of you might be thinking strictly through the lens of your workplace or your leadership influence or your business. Here's what I tell you. When choosing your people, prioritize heart over talent every time. Now, some of you might be thinking through the lens and the filter of what you do at home or the circle of influence that you have in your neighborhood or the team that you get to participate in and coach or the school that you're a part of. And this principle is the exact same, and it's true for us. See, here's the problem, though. We live in a culture where people are enamored with perceived talent, right? From the days of the playground games and all the way up into the corporate boardrooms, people often prioritize external talent, right? Which isn't bad. You need talent. You need good people around you. But here's the thing that Jesus was going to model for us. When you start to think and you start to prioritize what you think someone can do or can do for you over the kind of person that values a shared mission and accomplishing something bigger than yourselves, you are going to come up short every time. Play it out long enough, you're going to come up short every time. So if you're a young parent, you're trying to influence and raising your kids, prioritize surrounding yourself with loving and sacrificing and encouraging parents and people that are working towards the same mission. Prioritize that over prioritizing feeling like you're missing out because you're not in the right group or because your life doesn't feel like their Instagram reels feel and you don't feel as successful, and begin to fight that urge to believe that you would be better if you just had what they had or could be like them. Right? If you're working and you're leading or you're building a team in your business, or maybe you're looking just even for the right group of friends to begin to think about navigating life with, prioritize people who value working together, serving together, that have unique and different skill sets and perspectives and are working towards the same mission of becoming all that God created you to be. Prioritize those people in your life over people that may be incredibly talented, but low in character. People who struggle to honor other people. People who are constantly kind of tearing something down in an effort to build themselves up. That's what God is saying. Hey, prioritize heart over talent. Prioritize those kinds of people that are kind, that are encouraging, that are talented and gifted, yes, but man, they understand the bigger picture, the mission, the people that God's created them to be, and what it looks like, and put that in whatever context of leadership you're in, and begin to do that. Whatever area you're in, if you're wanting to make an impact in your season of life, I would say it maybe this way. Here's what I would tell you to do. Surround yourself with people who are compassionate champions in your life. If you want to make a significant impact with your life, begin to prioritize, how do I figure it out? How do I find people who are compassionate champions in my life? Not people who view you as competition. See, we often do that, don't we? Rather than prioritizing the kinds of people that say, hey, I'm with you through thick and thin. We get enamored by the people who are in different groups or have more than we do or have a different level of success, and we don't really care as much about their character and their heart. We care about what we think maybe we could be like one day. And so we just want to get into the next group, get to the next level, be seen from other people's perspective. Like, that's what people love and admire and respect. Like, that's what I want. Hey, here's what I would tell you. If you want your life to hold some significance for any length of time, begin to find people who would surround you that are compassionate champions for you. If you're a young parent right now trying to raise kids and you feel isolated and alone, go on a mission to surround yourself with people who say, you know what, I'm here for you. If you need me, I just want you to be the best parent that God's created you to be. I'm invested in your success. Right? Surround yourself with those kinds of people. Prioritize compassionate champions in your life. Here's what I tell you, trust me, those people are out there. There are people who want you to succeed, that believe in you, that love you, that care for you, that have the same mission and purpose to see you do well in life. And here's the best encouragement I could give them. Here's the fastest way for you to find those kinds of people in your life. You ready? It's by being the kind of person the person you're looking for is looking for. That is the fastest way to find compassionate champions in your life. You become the person you're looking for is looking for. This is true in relationships and it's true in leadership. You begin to live your life and lead with the right heart. And you know what begins to happen? You start to draw the same. Those people go, man, it's like we're kindred spirits. It's like we're connected, man. You and I see this thing the same way. And now we're championing these things together. See, that's what Jesus did. He didn't choose the same people that probably would have been chosen since the playground days, right? He didn't sit and line up all of them and go, all right, let me see. This guy's probably the smartest one I've ever met, right? This guy's super talented, man. You should see what he can do, right? Jesus didn't choose the same kind of way that most people would have chosen. Instead, he followed God's model. You see, the model leadership of Jesus is actually built off the model of leadership that God gave, certainly when it came to choosing people. Right? When God had to choose a leader for God's people, if you go all the way back to the Old Testament in 1 Samuel chapter 16, look at what God says. He was giving some instruction on how to find the next leader. And this is what he said. The Lord doesn't look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. You see, when God sent Jesus into the world to rescue and to redeem and divide us into a family with a mission to change the world, he didn't come looking for all the smart ones. Thank God. Right? He didn't come looking for all the ones who were the most talented and who had it all together. Right? Instead, the Bible says that God came and he looked for the broken. Right? God came to set us free from the sin that we had. And that sin problem required a savior solution. And so he came for those of us whose hearts could be healed. Those of us who would be set on fire for something bigger. Right? He didn't ask anyone to clean up or to pass a test. He didn't try to come along and say, hey, listen, if you want to be one of my followers, man, here's the bar. You kind of got to be this talented. You got to be this smart. You got to come from this background. You can't have this kind of a past. Now, look what it says in Romans chapter 5. It says that God demonstrates his own love for us in this way, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Right? That's saying, hey, before we became who we think we are now. God says, no, when you were a mess, when you were broken, when you had some issues, man, I loved you so much I came and I died on the cross for you. That was the model that God has. And that death is what sets us free from a life of insignificance and emptiness. And this invitation to follow Jesus, this creator of the universe, it's his way of saying, listen, I choose you. I choose you to be on my team. I choose you to join this family. See, the death of Jesus on a cross was more than just covering our sins. Now, that would have been enough. But boy, it was God's way of saying, hey, I just want you to know I choose you. I choose you. You don't have to feel like you're the most talented. You don't have to feel like you're the most gifted. In fact, the Bible is going to teach us that it's usually the opposite. The ones who are most broken that God is drawn to. Broken hearts, God can't deny. Broken spirit, those who are going, I need a Savior. Man, I'm a mess. Those are actually the ones that God is drawn to, going, I choose you. As if you have ever struggled with the fact that I just don't feel like I'm smart enough. I don't feel like people want to hear my voice. I don't feel like I'm good enough or talented enough. I don't feel like I have what it takes. I just want you to know, when you share that with God, God kind of leans in and would say, hey, listen, I hear your spirit, I hear your heart. And I know it motivates that, but man, I'm just telling you, you'd be my number one draft pick. I choose you. That's exactly who I want on my team. You're the exact kind of person I want on my team. Now listen, you don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the most talented. Man, I've created a lot of really great people, and we're going to surround ourselves with those people, and we're going to become who we were created to be. You see, the people that you surround yourself with matters. Right? So choose the right people to do life with. Right, that's why we value community so much here at Heritage Church. It's why we love having seasons throughout our year where we invite you to find a small group and find some connected people and relationships. It's why we have Sunday gatherings like this where we say, prioritize it, man. Be here, show up. And you need people around you. It's one of the reasons we do that so much as this church, because we believe that we are never designed to navigate life on our own. Right, so choose to surround yourself with the right people. And the way that you do that is you prioritize heart over what they can do for you or what you think they can bring to the table. Here's the last one. Prioritize heart over talent. Last one is this. Jesus had this incredible way of prioritizing and investing in and empowering other people. See, it's really important that you start with understanding I need some people in my life. I wasn't designed to figure out life on my own. And so you have to recognize how important that is. Then you need to prioritize putting the right people in your life. And then you have to begin to give them a voice. See, if you want to make a difference in your circle of influence, or if you want your life to have an impact, if you want to be a better leader, remember this. It's not about you. It's not about you. If you have been given any amount of influence in your life, you have been given it because God chose you as worthy. He didn't choose you because it was about you. He chose you because he believes in you, that he has a purpose and he has a plan for you, right? You look at the life of Jesus and you start to discover everything he did was about developing and empowering others, right? In the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew records this exact same moment from Luke chapter 6, where Jesus is preparing for ministry and he's praying through the night and he's about to choose his team, but he has this different language that he uses when he writes it in Matthew's gospel. Look what it says here in Matthew chapter 10. He says, Jesus called his 12 disciples, right? All night he's praying. Jesus calls his 12 disciples to him, and he gave them authority. He gave them authority, right? You know what that word authority means? Right? In the original Greek language, it was written, the word authority simply means this: the power or the right to make decisions, right? He chose these people and said, hey, I'm choosing you. I need you to be on my team. I need to surround myself with you, and I am going to give you the authority in my life. I'm going to give you the power to make some decisions. I'm going to give you the power to make some choices, right? Now listen, if you're a business leader, right, or if you're a leader in your own home, or you're a person of influence over your kids, or you're someone who wants your life to have an impact, don't miss this. Right? Because this is the leadership model that Jesus invites you to experience, right? First, recognize how important it is to not do life on your own. Then, recognize how important it is to have the right people surrounding you. But then, once you find those people, you need to empower those people to speak into your life, right? To give them authority, to be able to challenge you a little bit, to be able to sharpen you, to be able to call you on the carpet and say, hey, man, I don't know if you meant to say it this way, but boy, it really came off. Or, man, I just got to tell you, it seems like you're using substances to compensate for something that's missing in your heart, man. As a friend, I just want you to know I'm here for you. And I think we can get some help together. See, it's one thing to know I need people in my life, right? It's another to even take the risk to start to invite people into my life. Most of us don't want to invite others into our life. We want others to invite themselves. And so we come to a church like this and go, I was here for 3 months and no one ever came up and asked me to go to lunch with them. Well, did you ever ask anyone to go to lunch with you? No. See, most of us know how important it is to not isolate ourselves. We've learned that, haven't we, in the last handful of years, how dangerous that can be? And I think a lot of us know the importance of what it means to have the right kind of people around us. We're just not super intentional about it. But even if we make it that far, few of us empower the people in our lives to go, hey, would you speak into my life? I mean, let me give you some authority to challenge me and to help me grow as a person and as a leader. See, when you start to do that, the kind of impact, the blessing in your life that you have is far greater than anything you could imagine. But here's the thing, insecure leaders try to convince themselves, I don't know, if I don't do it myself, it's not going to be as good. Right? If I empower others to make decisions, then that's going to require me to give up control. And I'm just telling you, there are very few greater control freaks than me in this world. Like I am a hyper control freak. I like everything a certain way. I want it to be done a certain way. And I'm telling you, this is such a challenging concept for me to die to, or to recognize that that is also the lid to some leadership influence in my life, with my kids, in my marriage. But at times that insecurity in me rages, and that's what insecure leaders do. They think if I don't do it, it's not going to be as good. And if I give it away, then where's my value? I lose control. And if I give up control, then I'm not going to feel like I'm very significant. That's what insecure leaders do. Secure leaders understand, this has never been about me in the first place. And so if I'm going to accomplish God's dreams for my life, I can't do it alone. Right? I can't be the bottleneck. And I've got to empower other people around me. I'm a steward, not an owner. And that's a harder lesson to learn. I'm not saying it's easy, but Jesus says it is better. It is better. I need to find people in my life. I need to give them authority in my life. Now here's the thing. I know you've been waiting patiently to learn about which finger you should have cut off. Well, here's the thing. Hand surgeons will tell you that there is a right choice, and it's not your pinky. How many of you would have said your pinky? Yeah. In fact, that's the worst one for you to cut off because your pinky controls about 50% of your hand strength, right? It's not your ring finger or your middle finger because those two are kind of connected. Whatever one does, the other does, and it controls about 35% of your hand strength. So if you were kidnapped today, here's what I want you to know. And they give you the choice to choose a finger. The right choice, the least consequential finger to lose is your pointer finger. Yes, how many of you already knew that? You're ready to be kidnapped? You're good to go, right? Is your pointer finger. Now, here's the thing. The most important one to keep is your thumb. Right? Because without your thumb, your hand doesn't work. Your thumb is designed to work with I can't reach my pinky finger, but most of you can. Like, side note, can anyone do a 3 like that? Like, there you go. That's the way I have to do it. So, I don't know what it is. I have fat sausage fingers. So, your thumb is designed to work with each of your fingers on the other way. Now, I know this is probably dumb and a bit of a stretch. And I'm not sure if even Jesus would go, I didn't really mean it like that. But here's the thing. I wonder if the model of leadership that Jesus is trying to give us is this. Go be the thumb. Go be the thumb. Work with others around you. Right? Because you can't accomplish anything of significance without the right people around you. Right, so here's the thing, here's my challenge. If you have been making life about you, if you have been making leadership and decisions and holding on to control and letting fear or insecurity hold you back, if you keep thinking that you are number one, maybe the thing you should do today is cut off a finger. Not literally, but figuratively. Maybe it's time to cut off the finger and realize I could do without number one. I can't do without other people around me. Right? If you want to make an impact, if you want to use the influence that God has given you and grow as the leader that you are, let go of going alone. Prioritize investing in relationships around you, and then empower those people. Invite them in to speak into your life. And begin making life and leading about others. See, making life about you and leading about you is the fastest way for you to miss out on all that God has dreamed for you. In fact, I would say it's the surefire way to know that you've cut off the wrong things. See, once you get the right heart, the right posture, that really if I'm given influence over anyone or anything in my life, I need to realize that I'm first a servant. Once you get the right heart and the right posture, then you got to start putting the hands to doing the right things to lead the way that Jesus led. And you were never designed to have to lead on your own. And there are people that God has put in your life and in your circle, and you need to invite them in. You need to empower them and ask them, hey, would you help me grow? Man, I know I look like I got it all together, but on the inside I feel like I'm kind of dying. I just need you in my life. I need others. I need help. And invite them in. And watch what God can do as he increases your influence and impact in the lives of those around you. Would you pray with me? God, thanks for who you are and what you're doing in this life, in this church. Thank you for what you're doing in our hearts. God, may we leave today maybe just trying to take another step closer to becoming the kind of leaders that lead the way that Jesus leads. Maybe just whatever that would mean for us. Maybe it's inviting people in. Maybe it's joining a small group. maybe starting to use our gifts and to serve in this church. Say, I'm not going to keep showing up and being served. I'm going to start giving back. I'm going to start serving. God, I don't know what our next steps are, but Lord, I know we all have them. And so as we leave this place today, would you help us to take those next steps and be obedient to putting this into practice? Align our hearts with yours. Align our hands with yours. To see the value in others the way you see them. And that really, Lord, it's your way of showing value to us, that we don't have to have it all together. And so, Lord, we thank you for the lessons of leadership that we can glean from the life of Jesus. May we put it into practice, because this world needs better leaders now more than ever. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Heritage Church, we love you. Thanks for being a part of what God is doing here. Invite someone with you. It's going to be a great next couple of weeks here at Heritage. We'll see you soon, and we'll see you next week.